one pump, no water, extra hot. Why don't you write it down? Okay, Matthew Landis here to discuss, shut up you, to discuss the best part of our story, the theme.
Gold digger, digging for some gold, yellow metal in my...
Okay, so we've been chatting about how tacos are like stories. The shell is like the plot that structures the story. The protein is like the theme, that's the story's message. And the toppings are like the style, how the author chooses to tell that story. Today's goal is to break down 2 theme building strategies so that the reader can experience your theme in the most meaningful way. The positioning of the theme here in the metaphor is kind of important because you'll notice in the taco, the protein is in the middle. It's kind of hidden, wrapped inside the plot. And that's because themes are better understood and communicated in the context of a story rather than as the story. Step 1 might seem obvious, but you need to start by figuring out what is the theme you're trying to communicate. It would be pretty awkward if you didn't know because you are writing the story. We said before some common themes are friendship, survival, identity, grief, betrayal, death, and finding meaning or love. There are tons more, plus a bunch of crazy combinations that make things really cool. But remember we said avoid too many themes because it can get kind of weird and confusing for the reader. Which brings us to step 2, something that every editor everywhere should and will tell you in writing, but especially theme. Show, don't tell. What this means is that instead of actually telling the reader your theme, you need to show it through the context of the plot. This is so critical because life, by definition, is experience. And so a book's theme is best understood in the context of your characters experiencing that theme and then us, the reader, getting that theme as the story goes on. Let's talk theme with my favorite middle grade book of the last 5 years, A Monster Calls. Okay, so let's start with a 1-sentence summary of the plot so we can see how Patrick Ness uses the plot to convey the theme. Connor, a 12-year-old boy, subconsciously summons a yew tree-shaped monster to help him confront a terrifying emotional truth concerning his cancer-ridden mom's imminent death. The who is Connor, and what he wants is to confront and survive this admittance of this terrible truth related to his mom's prolonged sickness and imminent death. And how does he do this? By subconsciously creating a monster that visits him and tells him all sorts of wise monster stories and helps him express these repressed emotions. Okay, so the theme of this book, which you only gain access to through Connor's interactions and conflict and dialogue with other characters, is the complicated experience of imminent death. At the book's climax, we arrive at the great truth that Connor can't admit, and that is, he just wants his mom to die already because he can't take the pain and the hanging on and the knowing it's going to happen. But the theme of this book hits you right in the chest because you're experiencing it all the way through the book up to that climactic moment. The isolation of imminent death is shown by bullies at Connor's school who actually pretend he doesn't exist. The fear and anxiety of imminent death is shown by Connor's grandmother who constantly is trying to talk with Connor about what's going to happen after. The anger and chaos of imminent death is shown when Connor destroys his grandmother's living room. And we see the guilt of wanting imminent death to just happen already as Connor finally confronts the real monster at the end of the book, this terrible truth. That in the nightmare he's having, his mom is hanging over a cliff edge and Connor lets her go on purpose. What you're noticing is that the plot, Connor's conflicts and conversations, is the primary method of communicating this super heavy theme to us, the reader, because it's way more effective to show than tell. So here's an activity. Pick your favorite book and try and identify the theme or themes the author is trying to communicate. And then make a traditional story plot and look at scenes where the author communicates that through the main character's experiences. You can find a worksheet on my website to do this. I know that I'm always saying that writing is not a science, but it's an art, and nowhere is this more true than theme building. It has to be done well, and it has to be done strategically, and I think it needs a little bit of finesse. A good story could become an incredible story by using plot to consistently convey your theme. So let's wrap up by reviewing our 2 theme building strategies. Strategy number 1, identify the theme you're trying to communicate. And number 2, strategically plan and develop scenes in the plot where you show the theme through character experience rather than tell through narration. By doing this, you will not only make your story more interesting, but more lifelike. And people read books because they often are looking for experiences like their life or to escape their life. But it has to be real. And so by doing this, you're conveying a real message in a real way. Thanks for watching.
I'm headed west to strike it rich.
This book is now a really good movie starring Liam Neeson as the monster and a bunch of other British actors I don't know. But it's really good because Patrick Ness wrote the screenplay, so it's pretty close to the book. Teachers can find free worksheets in this area right here on my website that go along with this episode. And everyone can find a link to pre-order my debut young adult novel, League of American Traitors, coming out this August from Sky Pony Press. Feel free to buy one for your friend, but they're gonna have to know how to read. Are we done? Are we cut? I wasn't mic'd at all. This whole episode, I have not been mic'd.